What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ladies Who Bronche. I am Julissa.
What's up, everybody? This is Skittles.
And this week, we have a special guest.
Someone who you actually shared a womb with.
I shared a womb with this person. And I've known her my whole life. Venesia, who the fuck are you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Venesia. I am a college access expert trying to help these generation students to get into college and just make it and break these cycles that we see every day in our communities.
That's
you better
right?
come
You
through
see that?
with
You
this
see how she
college.
introduced herself?
Yeah. Oh,
Not in a good way. I mean, like in a good way. You see, like she.
No, you better come through with that title.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So Venesia is obviously, for those of you who know me, yes, she is my sister. But yeah, she is a college access coach, but she actually has a lot more stuff than that. Like, that's sort of her job, but like throughout her life, she has like mingled, and like she was studying like marketing in college, I remember, and at one point she wanted to be a fashion designer. Like, she's sort of gone through a lot of different waves, and I think, you know, she's sort of landed at this point and found her passion sort of helping with college access and education. But like, you know, there were a lot of different things before that.
But actually, just to tell that story, the reason why I got into college access was actually because Julissa, as a Flags 98 student, I'm Flag 98 alum.
Shout out to Flags.
Shout out to Flags.
98.
Was participating in an after-school program and told the director that I would be a good fit to be the youth developer. And I mean, before the title of college access came along into the DOE system, people were youth developers. So it was kind of more so like social emotional development, as well as, you know, talking a little bit about college, about why education is important. So once I was done with my marketing degree, I just didn't feel happy in the marketing world. It was boring. I was like the only Latina and working in the company, and it wasn't fulfilling. Like, it really made me depressed. And I remember just loving working with like Desiree, Jonelle, like I can name them all, and some of them have been guests. Yeah. And I've watched them grow, and it was just, I was happy there, and I went back to my happy, and I've been there for over 12 years, like 10 years now. Just doing this work. So it's more than just a job. It is a passion. I do like to network and talk a lot, and have always used my marketing skills to kind of like do this work. So it doesn't really feel like work. It feels more like who I am at this point.
Right, for sure.
So, Venesia, what is your favorite brunch plate?
My favorite brunch plate is chicken and waffles. I really enjoy the savory sweetness, the savoriness of the chicken wing. I put syrup on everything. I'm like the bacon with a side of syrup type of girl. I put syrup on my eggs. I know some people don't like that, but it tastes good.
Gross.
Listen, I love me a good chicken and waffles. So
I do too. I love a good chicken and waffles. I don't know about syrup everywhere. I actually prefer honey over syrup on my waffles.
But honey is just so thicker than a syrup.
Yeah, you just put a little bit of butter and syrup.
Sometimes a great waffle doesn't need syrup.
Yo, I fucking love waffles with syrup. Like,
like
they're literally
every
made
square.
to hold syrup. Like, that's
I'm more
what
of
each
a
square is
pancake
for.
girl, though.
I'm more of a French toast girl. I've developed. I thought I was a pancake girl growing up. I'm a French toast girl.
Nah, fuck out of here. Waffles all day.
It's a battle now. French toast is the shit, though. Think about it.
No, I do love a good French toast.
French toast is the best
French
one.
toast is like when you run out of Aunt Jemima mix. I'm sorry.
No.
Like, you're like, what can we eat?
See, that's because we grew up on hood, you know, fucking French toast. Like, it was my mom didn't buy Wonder Bread, but she bought, like, you know, white bread.
Yeah, it was typical
I
white
love a good potato bread French toast.
Potato, yeah. But that's my point is, like, we didn't
it was
have,
luxury. Potato bread is
but we didn't have that come up, right away. So, like, growing up, like, yeah, it was just mixing the egg with cinnamon and this basic ass bread, and you do
Yeah,
both
with
sides.
a little bit of vanilla extract.
Yeah,
I
always,
still do that.
always. No, but my point is, like, when I say I love French toast, what made me like fall into play is when I was having like really decadent French toast growing up. And again, and I don't like toppings and all that extra shit. For me, it's just like a good bread where the outside is just crispy enough, but the inside of the bread is still soft.
I feel you. Yeah.
That is, to me, the win
A
over
place
pancakes.
that has a really good French toast is Hotel Chantel. I'm always talking about this place, but they have this. It's like a custard-filled French toast.
Oh, that sounds good.
And it's like buttery, but also like sweet, like a custard. I don't know. It's just delicious. And when you do their prefix menu, it's just rows of French toast. Just like
wow,
it's delicious.
Yeah, I love French.
So what is your favorite booze to
to drink during brunch?
With brunch? Yeah.
Because of bad past experiences with mimosas, I'm a Bellini person.
Wait, what's the bad past experience?
Can't really
mimosas?
no.
I don't
Just too much of it, and
The
I don't know.
champagne got you too lit.
Yeah, and then stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'm more of a Bellini type of person, or just any typical drink, actually. But the favorite brunch I've ever been to, I'm sorry to cut into this piece.
No, go.
I was in DR a couple of years ago, and I randomly was like, I want to go to a pool, but I want to have brunch. And I freaking found a place that does a pool party brunch. All you can eat food, all you can drink, and then you have the fucking pool. It was amazing. I got sunburned, but it was great. It was the best brunch I've ever been to because it combined the two things I love.
Nice.
Yes.
So, Venesia, what was it? because I wasn't there, apparently. What was it like going out to eat as a kid growing up?
Well, I don't know about you, but in our family, we have our favorite aunts, uncles, and things like that. So I really grew up in the restaurant. I didn't have that once in a while situation. I was lucky enough to be a favorite of one of my aunts who had kids very late, thanks to her. For that, I was able to.
Nesta Kimberly Vanessa, she's
That's
coming
right.
directly
Wow.
Shade on the triplet roses. Not BB. BB is cool.
BB came late.
Yeah. But I was able to enjoy or bask in that luxury because they were two single adults, both working, making money, and I was like their pretend child for a very long time. So the Sizzlers right down the block was the spot after church, the Ponte Rosa, right in Bay Plaza. So Saturday nights was like restaurant night. But also even before all of that, my dad and mom, we always went to like Burger King's on Sunday and would get like the Whopper. It used to be 99 cents. This was before your time. It was actually a big sandwich back then, not like what it is now. Mm-hmm. And we used to like have to halves it. Like, so I would have half with mommy because she always was portion control for me. Mm-hmm. And then I would just have that and the Dynasty restaurant right there
Next
on 109 in Amsterdam. Once. You went there once and then we moved to the Bronx.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So what is your favorite bochincha topic over a meal?
I don't have a specific topic. But what I do enjoy is going to brunch with people who are talking about multiple things. Like, I'm not really into the whole, like, spending the whole brunch kind of dwelling on past and negative things. I'm more so like, I like bubbly conversation, social media gossip and things like that, but just really light because I feel like once I start drinking, it's like internally, my insides are like, just shut up about that relationship or, that guy. And I'm not specifically saying one person. I'm just saying I like to be in the company of people.
Oh, you mean like you tell the other people to shut up about that relationship?
No, internally.
Like in your head. No, but that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Because when she gave those two examples, I was like, she's married.
No. Yeah, I am married. No, I wasn't talking about me. I'm just saying like in
just
general.
To clarify.
And not that I don't like listening to my girlfriend. So if anybody who's my girlfriend is listening, it's not that I don't like hearing about it. I'm just Like if I'm drinking, I'm thinking like,
ain't nobody
it's a
going
good
to brunch
time.
to be dwelling and
You
crying
know,
and shit.
like I can't do sad and I'm drinking. I'm always happy when I'm drinking. So
for sure.
I always like good company.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, everybody. So now we're going to move on to cheers to the ladies where we cheers to the ladies who are killing shit in the game. And so first up, we're going to go into this Nike debacle with Colin Kaepernick.
This Colin Kaepernick commercial was really, really incredible. I don't know if you both saw it.
I didn't see the commercial. I've only seen the picture.
But let me tell you, that commercial had me feeling like I'm not doing shit with my life. Number one. Let's start there.
Yeah.
It was inspirational, but they had people who, you know, they were describing different athletes and different challenges that they have throughout the video. And then that's where the phrase of don't just do this, believe in that, and blah, blah, blah. That's where the phrasing comes from. And he even has a Serena in the commercial, which is dope, especially considering the bullshit that she's been dealing with lately.
So stupid.
And good for her for wearing a fucking tutu.
Yo,
I love
you
it.
want me to be more ladylike?
I
tutu.
loved it.
Yes.
Right. But anyway, yeah. So the commercial is just like inspiring in that way. And Nike has always had this thing where like either they do a commercial that has like puppets and is like completely like jokey, or they do something really intense and are like trying to really motivate your life and make you like just do it. Right. So I think the commercial does that really well. And obviously, like, I kind of actually wished that I didn't know that it was a Kaepernick commercial and that I would have caught it on TV.
Caught on, yes.
Because, and this is just like whatever, I studied television and radio in college, and so I get a little passionate or nerdy about it. But there is something that has been lost about with having the internet and people telling you things first. Imagine what that would have felt like. You're just watching Will and Grace, like I was watching yesterday, just watching Will and Grace on TV, and all of a sudden a commercial comes on, and it's this like inspiring thing, and it like draws you, and it's like, well, and you already know it's a Nike commercial because every athlete that they're showing and stuff, they're either wearing like gear or
like
something close,
on it,
right? And not every single shot, but a lot of the shots, like you see, it's clearly Nike, and it's the tone of it is very Nike, and you're hearing his voice. To be fair, like though a lot of people know who Colin Kaepernick is, I bet you most people don't really know what he sounds like, or they don't remember his voice. They don't hear him and go, oh, that's Colin Kaepernick speaking. Especially if you're not into football and you weren't watching him in multiple interviews and you just know that there's this football player dude who's kneeling and people are tight about it, right?
Right.
So I had that moment where I was just like, you know what? I didn't realize that this is what he sounded like. And then I felt cheated of the chance to really experience the commercial, like, and be surprised and then have that moment of like, oh, yes, like it's him talking and it's him narrating and it feels so much more empowering. Not to take away, that's a completely irrelevant tangent, but like, you know, the commercial did come out and instantly everybody went crazy. Also including people who went crazy and started burning fucking Nike sneakers.
Or like cutting merchandise that they had already bought.
Yeah.
Or how about the guy who burned his
down
house?
His whole house.
It was on the news
recently.
recently. Like
House because he was trying to burn a pair of sneakers. And you know what? Good for him. Good for him because God doesn't like ugly. That's why he gets. That's what he gets for playing with fire and trying to play Nike.
There was another one. There was another one that was showing pictures of burn marks on their feet because he burned the sneakers while they were
while they were on his feet. What a fucking idiot. That's why he got what he deserved because who told him to be burning the Nike stuff because he's tight on Nike.
And then look at what ends up happening is all this buzz with Colin Kaepernick created $25 million in buzz for Nike in less than 24 hours.
And you know what? Like, there's two reactions that I have to that. One is like, yes, fuck out of here. Like, you're tight. We're going to buy Nike. And I'm like, damn, Nike's not dumb.
Yeah,
like,
of course not.
Well, there was somebody who had posted on my Facebook that was like, the caption just said, "Were we baited?" Like,
I think so. And I sorry, I'm like, as I was watching it, and even when they announced him and the billboard that they put out about him, and you know the quote was beautiful. I thought that was art. I thought that was good enough. But then seeing the commercial and seeing how far ahead they put out that billboard and the whole frenzy, it kind of feels like they were baiting us a little bit because people are now, frankly, you know, everyone who's gotten a Jordan or is a Jordan fanatic. Jordan apparel and all of that swag that he has. You know, we're living in a time where we need a Kaepernick. Like there needs to be a replacement for what we symbolize as greatness. And you know, Nike needed Kaepernick to be that face. You know, your generation or our generation is shifting, and there's a lot happening around politics, and there's a lot happening about sexism, racism, you know, like all of these different issues happening in our communities. And we no longer look to Jordan, because the reality was Jordan always kept himself as an athlete. He never really got involved. So it's like, how is it that we continue to support a man who just was an athlete, and we don't look at like the LeBron James and the Kaepernicks to say, you know, these guys are stepping out there, risking it all, they're getting involved. Yes, their job is just to be athletes, but they are also what represents us right now,
right.
You know?
Right. And what's important also to a lot of, I think, like young men, because I know you probably get this a lot, Juan, too, with your students, where like when you get real deep into politics, they are like, oh, I don't really give a fuck about that. I don't care. Right. And it's like, it's important that some of the people who do catch their attention because they are athletes or rappers or what have you, that they also have that example where it's like, yeah, it's cool to, you know, be getting touchdowns, but it's also cool to not let a whole country disrespect who you are. You know, like that, I think it's very important. And I feel like our generation lost a lot of that. I feel like we were like, after us 90s babies, I think we had a pacified season where like, not that we didn't experience racism or anything like that. And maybe I'm speaking more as a New York City kid and less of a 90s kid, but like, I feel like because we grew up in the hood around each other, and there weren't white people around, we didn't really have to worry about feeling racism like that. And perhaps that's not true for somebody who lives in the South maybe and was in schools that had more white people. Like my first time in school with white people was in LaGuardia in high school, you know, but I've already formed opinions. Like I'm a whole like teenager now at this point, right? And while I'm still have room to be influenced and whatever, you know, I was my own person, and like I wasn't experiencing blatant racism at LaGuardia. You know what I mean?
And I also think it has a lot to do with like if you look at what was going on in pop culture at the time, like even with like the early 2000s, it's a very specific time. Like there were very specific fashion trends, very
Britney's
specific
making
like
music
people,
with hip hop artists. Christina, like all these things were like mixing the world.
There were so many different things mixing. Where even like you had Nelly with that country singer and stuff like that. So everything was mixing and melding, and things that right now would potentially be problematic. Weren't then.
Back then, yeah. Oh, even watching an episode of Will and Grace, there's some moments.
Yeah, there's cringeworthy moments. Yeah, and there are things. There are shows that were. I mean, Friends did not age well.
Yeah.
You know.
Really
and Friends, I remember loving Friends.
Nobody could tell me shit about Friends. We used to watch. Me and Venesia used to watch.
Rachel was like the icon of the show. Like every woman wanted to be a Rachel and have a Ross. That's
exactly
what it is.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that was also just like a very specific time.
Yes. Yeah. No, I completely. I've never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right.
But what I was gonna say with you guys, there is a moment where you guys didn't feel it as much as when you were younger, and it's because some of you were born in the Clinton era, right, where people were working, and now it was more about like it was a democratic government at the time. You know, right before Clinton, it was like like I already had experienced a Bush moment, you know, me as a child, so I knew about the drug. You know, I was born in the era where the drug epidemic was about to be on its brink, hopefully, of ending, right, and then the first war happened between Iraq and the U.S. and Bush was involved, Bush Senior.
Right.
So you guys were in that period where it was just like, it was like that moment of we were getting out of that rut. And then it was just like Clinton was there, he did his shit, and then back to Bush, and 9/11 happened, and all of you guys were like young. And
that's what pulled us, I think,
back into reality. Like shit, like we are in danger now.
Yeah, life was good before 9/11, aside from like regular being a kid and like things that bother you as a kid. But anyway, like, and that was not to sidetrack so far, but the idea being like we had a moment like that, and I feel like our young kids aren't necessarily having that same thing, but there are still kids who are like, I don't really care about this, and they don't have a reason to feel the connection. But with Trump being president, and God forbid he gets another 4 years, but if he does, like, it's important for them to understand that they need to stand tall and like righteous in who they are, and not just be pacified by like different idols and people who are being thrown in their face who don't stand for anything and are just there as fillers. So anyway, but yeah, cheers to Nike. But a bigger cheers to the Indian Supreme Court. Finally, homosexuality has been decriminalized in India.
Y'all can have gay sex.
And it's
That's literally what it is, though. It's like they can now have a gay sex.
right. And but the idea that I mean, there's so many countries that are in that place where it is like a crime, and it's being in the U.S. like because we fight, so like we've just gotten through the marriage equality thing. Like our fight is still a fight, but it's so far ahead that when I saw this headline, I was like, wait, it was a crime, and it made me feel really like ignorant to
right to the other side of the world that still is against.
Yeah. I think for me it was kind of for me it was like, oh, that's cool, but it wasn't necessarily a surprise that it was a crime, because I know that a lot of areas in that part of the world, like they're getting killed, like and publicly.
I totally know that, but I guess I just think of India because it's like there's so much business and like it is a central hub for a lot of things. I don't know why I assumed that it would be more progressive. That's just my lack of knowledge. Like I'm not like if we were talking about a different country in a different region, like somewhere in like a country in Africa or maybe somewhere in the Middle East or like Russia and like all these other countries, like that makes sense to me. But for some reason, India just wasn't on my list of places for that. So, but either way, super dope. Like,
yes,
awesome.
I hope that you guys have the best sex in the world.
Yeah,
I'm
like
one
pride
note,
parades and things like that. I'm really excited to see how this flourishes. It's a big move, and I hope that other countries who aren't in that place sort of follow suit.
Yes. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cheers to all the teachers and DOE employees.
Yeah.
We started work this week, or at least. Well, when this comes out, it'll be last week. And it's hard out here for a teach. So,
How was it getting back into the classroom? How'd you feel?
Well, it's the first week, so they're always behaving in the first week. But I already have like an idea of who's going to be
the problem.
Yeah,
kids.
I already
Why
know.
is it that they label them that? And teachers talk about it, right?
You don't label them the problem. Just maybe a challenge, maybe a special snowflake. Seventh grade is full of that. And high school, you get a couple of attitudes here and there. So
yeah. Well,
but
cheers to you.
Yeah, cheers to me and cheers to the rest of the teachers all over the city.
Have an awesome school year, guys.
Yes.
Cory Booker releasing these motherfucking emails. So, first of all, let's talk about Brett. Brett is really, really out here trying to get this seat, and the reality is,
they're not trying to hear it.
But the Democrats, I feel like this is the first time that I'm like seeing the Democrats give a level of pushback that I'm like, yeah, you have to fucking get a little tougher. You know what I mean? Like, I understand that, like, when they go low, we go high. I totally get that. But there are moments where some motherfuckers just really need to get hit. I grew up with that sort of ideology. Like, we're non-violent, but, like, sometimes a bitch just needs to get slapped, right? So, like, I just feel...
I feel that all the time as a teacher, Like, sometimes just, like, kids just need to get their ass beat.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so, like, I just feel like...
Maybe I shouldn't say that.
But I'm like, are we...
Don't worry, I'm not... We won't quote you on that. But I just, I think, like, the fact that Cory Booker was willing to sort of get on the line and, like, violate something, which apparently he actually... everything was not... None of it was an issue of national security or anything like that. So I don't believe that he's actually going to get in a shit ton of trouble. But the idea that he could have potentially done it was a big thing, but it was kind of funny too. The hood in me was kind of laughing because what was it he said? He was like, "This is my first. Yes. This is the closest I'll get to a Spartacus moment." And I was like,
when he said that shit, I was just like, damn. He watched fucking Spartacus. He was just like,
but it was just like he's just so corny. I just was
it
you're
was
so
like
corny.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but that's an aside. I'm being mean, but like that. to me is like, yes, y'all motherfuckers needs to be out here willing to lose your jobs, because the lack of action has motherfuckers out here losing their lives. Like, we need that type of action. Like, Martin Luther King got arrested. Like, what y'all scared about out here? If y'all need to break some fucking rules to get shit done, then get shit done. So I really feel like that, you know, it was a great move on their part. And yeah, I don't know. I wonder what's going to happen. But Brett himself is interesting. So we know that he's trying to sort of overturn Roe versus Wade.
Yes.
And he's just all up in our pussies. Like, I don't understand why he feels like he needs to have a say on abortion. He called birth control pills, like, I think almost like abortion or like inducer, or I don't remember. I'm not even
it was something to that effect, because a lot of women were saying, I need to go get a refill of my abortion pills.
Right.
And, like tagging him on Instagram.
Right. And so, like, he's trying to take over our organs. He's clearly racist. Like, it just isn't... it isn't fair that the Democrats, so they were handed a bunch of documents with very little time to review them, and we're expected to, and I think only 7% of the documents on Brett and like sort of his background and stuff were released. And traditionally anyone else, so like Sotomayor or other people who have been sort of put in that position, have released 100%.
Everything, yeah.
Why can't we see 100% of what this? Why under a Trump administration is anyone feeling like they just have the right to not show anything? It's clearly like, I feel like a conspiracy is being weaved in our faces, and like no one's doing anything about it. Kamala Harris actually really went in on him. She basically like had asked him a very direct question and he couldn't answer it. He couldn't answer whether or not he had spoken to people at a specific law firm in regards to the case. And the way he was like talking in circles, it was so annoying. Like, that was a moment where I was like, slap a bitch. Like, I wanted her to come down so bad and just slap him in, or like just like yoke him up a little and be like, answer the fucking question. He was circling around so much. And he thinks this is a game. Like, I feel like the whole Republican Party thinks this shit is a game. And we literally, like, if these midterm elections, like, I know people are always saying go out and vote, go out and vote. And yes, you should always go out and vote. But like, if we don't try to fuck up these midterm elections, man, I don't know what.
Well, you know, we've had some small wins. There was a win recently in Boston.
In Boston, yep. Yes. She won for Congress, I believe.
She's going up for it, and she was campaigning for a very long time. And you know, people who supported her, actually the person, I don't know if you remember her, Julie, the lady who worked for MTV, who used to do stuff with you guys with the youth council.
Okay.
Julia Mejia, she used to work for MTV Productions, and she actually was running, you know, helping her in Boston. She lives in Boston
and
now.
her name is Ayanna Pressley, the woman who won in Boston.
Right.
Ayanna Pressley. And she gave a beautiful speech. She even like thanked her opponent in it for making her like a stronger candidate, and like making her bring her best foot forward for things. So that's a win, and we've had a lot of women winning overall, and we're having a lot of Democratic wins. So like of young, eager people who are winning, like Alexandra Ocasio here, you know, different position, but still like just like in general in office, we have a lot of young people, and that's super, super fucking dope. Let's keep the shit up. Next, cheers to Cicely Tyson, who is finally getting an Oscar. So she's getting a special honor at the Oscars this year. First of all, she's 93 years old, but she is looking fucking great.
Yeah.
She's
older than Queen Elizabeth, actually.
Damn. But yeah, she's getting an honorary award alongside Kathleen Kennedy, Frank Marshall, Lalo Schifrin, and Marvin Levy. So I'm proud of her. And it's crazy to me that, you know, she doesn't have one. But, you know, Black progress, slow but always sure. Slow but always sure. So shout outs to Cicely.
And Cicely, who always works with Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry offered Jeffrey Owens a job over Twitter. Jeffrey Owens was the guy that was working at Trader
Yes,
Joe's,
yes,
who was on the
from
Cosby,
Show.
Yes.
and Fox tried to shame him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now people are reaching out. So Tyler Perry offered him a job over Twitter, and Nicki Minaj offered to donate $25,000 to him. So I'm like,
wow, Nicki Minaj.
bitch,
That's
give me that
random
money.
to me for
Yeah.
some reason that Nicki got involved. Is
I
Nicki
don't
just trying
know.
to get her reputation back up?
Girl, I don't know.
What's
She's
going on
going
with Nicki?
crazy.
Yeah,
And look-
she's all over the place.
Can we talk about
Like,
that real
all
quick?
right,
Because I actually don't
so-
get Damé loose on that. 'Cause I actually have no idea what's going on with this woman.
So I like, okay, so it's been a very weird era because Cardi B had blown up and all that stuff, right? And while Cardi B had released her album, Nicki Minaj completely disappears.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, like a week after Cardi B releases her album, Nicki Minaj reappears on the internet and then releases Chun-Li and Barbie Tings. But you would think that, like, having disappeared from the internet for like over 6 months, she would be releasing an album and not
Right.
2 singles. But whatever, we took it.
She wasn't doing shit.
Yeah, we took it with a grain of salt or whatever. We saw Chun-Li climbed up the charts eventually, and whatever. There's still this. At the Met Gala, we thought that the feud between Cardi and Nicki was squashed or whatever, but apparently
It was for TV only.
that's not the case because, subs are thrown and all this stuff between the two of them. But more so, Nicki Minaj comes out with her album, which, like I said last week, it's a good album.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it debuted at number 2 on the Billboard charts behind Astroworld by Travis Scott, who was number 1 for the second week in a row. So she was tight because apparently she says that he was selling sweaters and merchandise and tour passes in bundles without having let's backtrack a little bit. In the music industry, it's now like a thing for people to create bundles for you. So you get like a jacket and you'll get like a signed poster and then you'll get your album and stuff like that. He was apparently selling bundles without having the like guarantee of getting the album with the bundle.
Gotcha.
So apparently they're including those sales in his first week sales, and that's why he had the number 1 album again.
Right.
Gotcha.
So she was tight about that and was speaking out about that. Another thing that apparently happened, she accused Spotify of
leaking it?
Not leaking it, of punishing her and not giving her the amount of promotion that they would usually give her because she played the album 10 minutes before it was supposed to be released on Apple Music. So apparently that was another thing. And then, so people, like, it's been a string of like these very Azealia-esque Twitter rants.
Yes. As I've heard.
And yeah, so it's very interesting to see how the tides have changed because people really like have been siding with Cardi and people really have been siding with like other people because of her rants. Like they've been kind of like crazy, which at the end of the day, I don't know what's true or what's not true in terms of the bundles or whatever, but I feel like number 2 is still charting at number 2. Like you're still making mad money. Now there's other people who have weighed in, like I believe is it Childish Gambino that had the
music video with the cartoon?
The cartoon.
Yes.
And so in there's a clip of Nicki Minaj and Travis Scott building a castle with Legos, and then Travis Scott just like knocking it down.
He has Azealia sitting on a tree too.
Yeah, I saw that. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's a great album. I'm still a fan of hers. I hope that whatever she's going through works out because she also had to reschedule the American leg of her tour. So like originally her album was supposed to come out in June. The album came out in August. So then the tour was supposed to start in September, and now they're rescheduling it to next year.
Right. Wow.
So
next year soon. So.
Well, yeah, like
Wow. Like
instead of starting in September, it'll start in January.
Gotcha.
So Yeah, I don't
Do
know.
you think
She's
it's just
going
that
through
she's
it.
like past her prime? Like, I mean,
I don't know that. I don't know to say that it's necessarily past her prime. Like, I feel like there's a trend where where the industry likes to take artists, build them up, and make them seem invincible, and then tear them down.
Yes.
And we've seen this time and time again. I mean,
Yeah.
Britney Spears, example number one.
Yeah.
And guess what? That happened after her 4th album.
Yeah.
So like, like
Yeah.
Kanye West.
But you know what it is that
like-
like you get the 4 years to be your young goofy self, and then once you've matured 4 years, it's kind of like high school. It's like, okay, let the freshmen come in, and we're gonna build artists that are better than you because we want to see what you fucking got. And you know, a lot of people, like, she's had issues with Funk Flex, and she kind of came at him because he was saying some real sexist shit, like trying to ask her if she writes her own lyrics, you know, all of that shit. Like, and I think that that's what the industry does. Like, it gives you a good 4 years for yourself, and now it's like, move over. If you can't compete now, then that's it.
I mean, I
like,
also think that she's somewhat at fault too, because if she would have, I've been following her obviously, and I've been following Cardi B, and at the end of the day, Cardi B just comes off way more genuine,
of course,
and everything. So I think that if Nicki Minaj would have just been more like yes, she did motorsport with Cardi, but like if she would have just been like really accepting of Cardi and really genuinely like.
They both
the
could have
thing
been out
is
here
that
killing
Cardi
it.
is like the guy that stands on the corner with the sign, like, I'm just give me money for beer. Like, she's being that honest.
Right,
like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna dance for you on the train. Just give me money for beer. Like, that's Cardi's right now. That's like her motto.
And then again, we don't. I like I'm always like very wary because you don't know what's constructed by the publicist
and what is the person.
So like, what if like in my head, I'm like, what if Cardi isn't as genuine as she comes off, or what if like, I don't know.
But
like,
there are people who know Cardi because Cardi's from the Bronx, so I know like 3 people who know Cardi B. And like they none of them have said that she's being inauthentic in the way that she acts. She's just extra herself. Like, you know, she's always been the loud girl in class. She's extra loud in front of others. She's always said, well, it's kind of like with Azealia. We know Azealia, right? So like when she's cutting ass and saying shit on Twitter, we know that's not a publicist. That's Azealia Banks speaking. And I think that there's a lot of that with Cardi, where I feel like when Cardi is not being genuine and when like people are pushing her, it's very obvious. When she did her SNL episode and there was a skit with like the white chick, I talk about this episode a lot because it really annoyed me. I was actually kind of offended by it, where one of the I don't know her name, but she's one of the white actresses on SNL, and she listens to Cardi's album, and then all of a sudden she's like talking like Cardi B and like disrespecting people, and she feels like empowered by the album, and she's acting like ratchet and stuff in that skit. Like, I can tell Cardi wasn't really being genuine. Like, she's not a good actress. Like, Cardi is not a good actress. But, you know, she is who she is. I think she's genuine. I don't know.
But yeah, so that's that tea. I don't know. Nicki, I love the album. Can't wait to see you live.
Yeah.
And I hope that, I don't know. I feel like I always wanted people to like continue liking her because there was that point where Nicki Minaj was literally the only female rapper that anybody.
Yeah. A lot of people love her.
But now there's like
one of her first albums.
There's like gangs of them. Like, you look online and there's a ton of girls like with vibrant colored wigs and rap songs and stuff.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So Juan, Alex is black. Did you know?
Alex Haynes. Is black.
If you don't know, freaking incredible.
Yes.
He's a writer. He's an actor here in New York City. He is in Puffs now. So if you have seen the show Puffs, come see Puffs again because Alex Haynes is in it now. But Alex Haynes has a series on Vimeo called Alex is Black, and it's short clips that sort of give you an insight on being biracial. And it's so like that. So episode 1 came out, and it was actually pretty fucking touching.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Yeah, and I don't want to like spoil it for people, but like the conversation around being biracial and using the N-word nigga. I hate the phrase the N-word. Nigga. Saying nigga. Like,
it's a very cute, refreshing 2 minutes and 13 seconds.
2 minutes, yeah. Totally check it out. We've shared it already, but if, you don't go to our page. If you don't follow our page, you should be following our page. But Alex is Black on Vimeo, and he's also, doing a fundraiser so he can keep doing episodes. So donate to that shit. Support art, man. We spend mad money on all these artists who don't give a fuck about us at the end of the day, but we won't throw $10 to go see our friend in the show. No shade. Word. Just saying.
And the last cheers to the ladies who is going out to Queen Rihanna for 1 year of Fenty Beauty. We love you.
Yeah, that shit's dope. Yeah. It's good makeup. All right, so now we're moving into our Tuta Loca Es, where we call motherfuckers out from doing the most. But I also want to take the moment before we get into that to acknowledge that a few hours before we started recording, Mac Miller passed away of an overdose. And his last tweet was a lyric from his new album that talks about fuck 9 lives, and fuck a heaven. I'm still going to get high, something along those words. I'm paraphrasing, but he was only 26 years old.
Only 26. And I feel like if you look at XXS Tentacion, he was a young 26-year-old. Demi Lovato, 25.
Yeah.
Mac Miller, 26. Like... This, I don't want to say younger generation because they're only a year younger than us. Yeah. But, like, what are we doing?
I don't know.
What are we doing, guys?
It actually kind of scares me. Like, growing up for me, like, I remember thinking weed was such a huge deal. Like, the effects of what weed would do to your life in my head were magnified to the degree that actually all these other drugs that I didn't even imagine or know of actually make your life worse. And there's a lot of depression and feelings that are tied to this drug use. And I think it just goes to show, again, like, mental health is real and it doesn't matter if you're rich. Money does not solve mental health. Money only solves mental health if we're putting money into programs and stuff that will help people and, like, therapy and, you know what I mean? Like, if that's where the money's going. But if you're just talking about a bunch of rich kids and, a lot of people are actually blaming Ariana Grande for his depression.
Yeah, leave Ariana alone.
Leave her alone. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
she's already
ridiculous.
Through a lot.
Imagine losing a person that you were literally in a relationship with.
Like, yeah, whether you broke up or not doesn't matter. Like, it's not like they ended because he did some, like, wild, like, she had no reason to hate him. It's really, I don't know. Trolls are a sick group of people. Yeah. Sometimes they're funny, but sometimes they're just assholes. She had to deactivate her Instagram and stuff because all of the overwhelming amounts of, like, hate comments that she was getting.
And she already went through something recently
this
in
week,
public in Aretha's funeral. It's like she's already been kind of demoralized and
just leave that girl alone. We also lost Burt Reynolds this week. Burt Reynolds to me, like, I grew up in a generation, like, I know who he is, like,
but you don't really know.
I don't have an attachment to him, but a lot of, we're losing a lot of people. I'm starting, the more that people like Burt Reynolds die, the more I'm like, oh, wow, I never knew that person's name, or, oh, shit, yeah, that's the dude from this, or I don't recognize them when they're young, but I'm like, oh,
that was the grandpa from that, right?
He was in that one episode of this, like, just, like, nowhere near close to their legacy, and that's, and that's how I remember them. But so, R.I.P. Burt Reynolds, he was an icon. He actually wanted to be a football player, and had, like, an injury, and then eventually found himself in Hollywood and had a career. So he was mostly a sports guy. And he was in the original The Longest Yard, and that I know him from that, and I also know him from the episode of Golden Girls when they make a big deal about Burt Reynolds and he comes on. Like, I feel bad. I don't have anything valuable to add, but he had a great legacy,
So I'm going to jump in on this one because Sephora just try to play themselves. If you have been following Sephora, Penrose company was trying to do some starter witch kits. It went really bad and really south. A lot of people started coming after them on Instagram, sending them, like, statements saying that they're inappropriating, like, this ritual that a lot of like cultures have, whether it be saging or doing any type of like hoodoo root work. And it was like kind of like they were inappropriating that type of lifestyle that certain people take very seriously, and it's their business, it's their career, and they decided not to release it, which is
Good.
you know is a
Don't
great
release that
thing.
shit.
You know, I think people are getting too overly like yogi, like, oh, I do yoga, therefore I should own 6 stones, or you know, I should just have stones, or I think I'm a witch because I have random dreams and I see them in my real life. So it's like some people really do feel energy and they really have experiences, and I don't think it's for everybody. I just, you know, certain things are meant to be.
If you're not about that life, you're not
sacred.
about that
Right.
life. Really. Like, you out here, you think you want to, I think Jack Fuller had posted this meme that I thought was hilarious, about where like people are on an escalator and there's these like 2 like twin like ghosts in front, and nobody notices except the one kid whose eyes are like bulging out of his head. And it's because he can see he can see spirits and shit, right? And they're like, oh, everybody want to be a witch until they see spirits. You imagine that shit, walking around and literally seeing spirits left and right? That shit is scary. And so to make a sort of like make it a cutesy thing, and you know what? Things like American Horror Story, like when the whole Supreme thing came out, that was
Oh
cute.
yes,
Like,
I was
that
all about
cute.
being a part of the coven.
Right. And like dressing like that
Still
and like
am.
wearing the style is like cool. Like, you know what I mean? But like if you not really about to be like, you know, calling upon your spirit guides and doing that whole shit, like, or if you think you're about it and then you do it and then you're you know what I mean? It's just like, don't really, it's not a joke. It's not a cute thing. It is some people's religion.
Right.
Like, so it would be like selling Christianity kits or Jew kits.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? That's not appropriate. It's just not appropriate.
It's just not.
So another thing that we have to fucking talk about that also happened this week, a man sitting in his apartment, chilling, has a police officer walk in. She thinks she's in her own apartment, and she shoots him and kills him. I honestly, like, I heard that and it just didn't make sense to me. And so I was like, okay, I need to sort of like do research, because it doesn't make sense to me that someone would walk into a house, and how you don't know your own house. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you not know your own house?
What was she
to
on?
The point
is
that
what I'm
you
saying.
that you like you're gonna reach
How
for
do
your
you
gun.
get into somebody else's house? Also,
Yeah, I honestly
y'all not locking your doors.
Right.
Lock your doors.
Yeah, I was
people.
gonna say,
honestly,
what state was this in?
Dallas. This is Dallas, Texas.
Okay, because I do
feel
know.
like that's a state that they don't lock their doors. Lock your doors.
You're like, cierra la ventana.
Yeah. But like, all jokes aside, so the gentleman's name is Botham Jean, and he's from St. Lucia, and he, you know, just graduated. He just graduated from Harding University in Arkansas, and you know, he has a really great legacy. Sean King, who often writes articles, he's a journalist, and he covers a lot of like Black Lives Matter things and just social justice issues. Like, knew a friend of his, so like he was like one of these social justice warriors. Which honestly, to me, like, the story's still developing. They haven't released any details. They haven't released her identity. Low key, if that's her neighbor and she is some crazy racist person, like, I could see her doing that shit on purpose. I don't want to make conspiracies or anything like that, but it just seems a little
Like,
too
how do you
fucking,
burst in? Yeah.
It just seems too fucking far-fetched. Because at least I burst in and I'm like, oh shit, is the first, oh shit, there's a black man sitting down? Or is the first shit, oh shit, this doesn't look like my apartment. What happened to my apartment? Like, because I don't think he had the same couch. You know, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, how do you walk into
yes.
someone's home and think it's your home? And how long were you in that space that you thought you had to kill someone?
It feels like a setup. Like,
yeah,
you know, like they're
make
saying
sense.
that to the public. Because, like, anyone right now, like, no one is buying the same shit. Like, come on. Like,
yeah.
It could have been something where somebody might have called the cops. Who's the Becky who called the cops, right? And then here comes this woman. She notices it's a man, probably shoots him, and then makes it.
No, but she really thought that is the statement.
Parades.
She thought she was walking into her apartment. That is the statement. This isn't the theory. She literally said, I thought I was walking into my apartment, And, you know,
I don't believe it.
You know, well, I don't believe it either, but
were the lights off?
well, these are all the questions that no one has the answers to right now, right? Or rather, they haven't released. Like, they're just still investigating. By the time this episode comes out, though, we'll probably have more answers. But right now, that shit just don't make no sense. Shit makes
She's trying to get her story together.
Yeah.
And next on our Tuta Loca, we have a couple of supers that were getting a little bit handsy.
What is this orgy in NYCHA housing in Throgsneck specifically?
And the third orgy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And why weren't we invited?
In the Bronx. Well, I mean, I already told you my concern, but I don't think I'm going to say that on the podcast.
Yes, but we know. Yes, I understand. But you know what's wild? That it's Throgsneck specifically. The other day, my dad had like driven past there. We were going, I forgot where we were going. And I was like, oh, this is what the Throgsneck projects look like? They look really nice. Like,
because Throgsneck is nice, though.
Yeah, but the projects, like, the buildings aren't as high. You know how some project buildings are super tall? They're short buildings, and it looks like there's a lot of green grass everywhere. And that's not to say, I'm not trying to make projects seem luxurious. I'm very well aware that the situation in housing projects is, like, ridiculous. But from the outside, that housing project, I was like, it looks like that. I didn't see nobody outside in front of the building. Like, I didn't see nothing. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what it's like to live in these projects. Well,
now you know.
Now I know. It's because everybody's too busy fucking each other.
It seems pretty kinky.
Yeah.
Like,
There's
meet me in the steam room or like the laundry room.
Ooh.
And it was.
I would only do it if the super was hot or if like the janitor was hot.
And I bet that they weren't. I bet that they weren't hot is kind of my thing. I'm pretty sure none of these people are fucking attractive. Yeah. And so like people are just right now suspended on 30 days without pay. So, yeah.
You're recovering, right?
Oh, because you were trying to get it off, man.
Yeah. And apparently they're also trying to see if they were putting in overtime hours during this. So
yo, like imagine to get paid.
To have an orgy. Yeah.
Can't have it all, guys. Yeah. Can't have it all.
Absolutely. So, you know, that's wild. They're just out here being wild.
Out here getting overtime and a nut. Like, what?
Speaking of wild, Orlando Brown got arrested for robbery in Vegas. Orlando Brown, for those of you guys who don't know, he's
So Raven.
The dude from That's So Raven.
He's been going through it.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, because like I remember it was either last year or 2 years ago where he was like throwing out claims that like he got Raven pregnant and she had to abort his child.
I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, I didn't hear that one either. I just knew he had a drug problem.
Yeah, I knew he had a drug. He'd be wildin'. He's wild. Yeah, he's really, really wild. Another thing that's wild, a man bringing a Trump 2020 flag to Frozen on Broadway.
Literally, it was like he was front row. There's a video on Instagram where like there's this guy just holding up a Trump flag. And one of the ensemble members grabbed the flag and threw it backstage because it was during the curtain call. And yeah, a lot of people were in the Broadway community were like mad upset, especially at Frozen because it's like
it's a kids show.
Frozen of all the
it's
shows.
just reminding the kids of what's
about like
coming.
love, and it's like
what you got against Olaf? Like
yeah. So
fuck that. That's weird.
And then lastly, officials found a mass grave in Mexico holding 166 bodies from. And apparently this isn't like the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's like in a city called Veracruz where there have been a lot of disappearances that have been linked to like drug wars and cartels and whatnot.
Honestly, like a few episodes ago, like I had brought up how they were thinking about legalizing drugs just to see if they can like control.
Yeah, I remember that.
The problem, like, and this is what we're talking about. Like, this is, you know, there's been more than 35,000 people who've disappeared in Mexico. 9,000 are women, and 6,300 are minors. That's
crazy.
That's a lot.
That's a. Oof, it like gets under my skin. I get chills just thinking about it. It's like some movie shit. All right, so now let's move into our topic. So college access for kids in the quote unquote hood. So as Venesia had mentioned, she does work with young people. And so I definitely want to hear a little bit about your job, but I definitely also want to hear about your journey. So you did say that your passion, you sort of got a passion from it from working with kids, but you've had an interesting journey with education yourself.
Yes.
So what is your educational journey and how did it get you to this job?
I was not one of those scholarly students. I mean, I was very lazy when it came to my education. I decided really late in high school that I wanted to do fashion. So like 11th grade, as I'm sitting in Evander, shout out, shameless plug, Evander High School.
Badass school.
Which is, that's my school though, guys. If you went to Evander and survived, so shout out to everyone who went to Evander. So I went to Evander, and around, it was like junior year, I decided I wanted to do fashion. I don't know why. I was watching a lot of Bravo at the time. They used to put up all of the fashion weeks. And I was like into fashion, but not really. Like, I was more of a tomboy at the time, like never really dressed up or anything like that. But it was the first time I ever really put myself in a challenge, and I whipped up a portfolio and drew a bunch of sketches.
She drew a dress. She had to draw a vegetable or fruit dress, and she drew a carrot dress that looked really, it was like the sexy, like, it was cut off, it was strapless, and it was like a tight little thing, and then it had ribs inside that looked like the carrot ribs, and it looked dope. I will never forget that picture. Like, I remember the picture.
I had some sort of, and it's true. Like, it was the first time I did not have any previous experience with drawing or doing any of that type of stuff. Like, I was just really like very imaginative and creative about it. And I still have that sketch actually. And it was the first time I challenged myself. I didn't get accepted. I cried. I
remember
did the
that
whole
day.
like, oh, I'm never gonna amount to anything. And then I went into college. I ended up going to City Tech in Brooklyn as a fashion marketing major, and I quickly realized that college was for me. Like, high school, middle school, and elementary, I don't know what the fuck that was, but college just felt like I was in control. I was taking classes that I was interested in. I had a lot of issues very young, like staying focused in class, and a lot of it was because I'm really the type of person that if something doesn't interest me, it's very hard for me to stay involved. And like, you know how some people say, just tough it out, take one for the team. Yeah, I'm not that when it comes to like something I know I have to wake up every day to do. So, went to college, and I actually started getting fucking A's. And I was like showing my mom, because my mom, who came to this country so that we can have a better life, said to me, well, at least you got your high school diploma. And then it became a thing like, well, I'm going to fucking finish college, because I can't believe my mom thought that I was only good enough for a high school diploma. And
she didn't think you were only good enough for
I know
that.
I'm not saying it like
Don't
that,
be
but
talking about my mother like that.
It wasn't in that intentional way, but she kind of said like, you accomplished something further than I did. And when you're young, you don't really understand that until you're put through those trenches. So, I went to college for 2 years and transferred into York, and I had to quickly change my major even in City Tech, because the major that I was in fashion marketing. I wasn't really going to get into the fashion world, so I had to switch my major to marketing management, transferred to York, graduated, and I am not going to tell you guys that.
The year, okay.
I won't say the year for those people who don't know me, and because then they'll think I'm younger than you, Julie. So I graduated from college, and then I just went to work right before my end of year in college. Children's Aid decided to push me out of their nest and say, go work in your industry. And I worked for a company. It was a research company. We sold airtime for commercial. And as soon as the writers' strike happened, so did the end of that company. They closed a bunch of research companies or just ad companies, because when writers don't write, ads don't sell. So basically ads kind of buy the airtime for the TV show.
Right.
So when a TV show gets canceled, it's because companies like Toyota or Coca-Cola have pulled out from wanting to advertise during their airtime. So that's how shows sometimes get canceled and people don't realize it. They're like, oh, remember that show was so good, and then it just disappeared. It's usually because of that. So, I learned a lot there, but I was not happy, and went back into education. And I started working with high school kids and doing college access work through this grant through CUNY called Gear Up. And I learned a lot there. I was able to meet incredible professionals doing incredible work even till this day. But then I really got the feel for the college access world because my journey was such a struggle. My career kind of made up for all of that. I became very passionate about college access. I started doing research about it. I started looking back historically on what statistics said about not only just children in general, but inner city kids, especially in New York, especially in the Bronx, because, I kind of did my most of my educational career from high school on here. And then it was just like, I don't know, there was a moment, I think after the 5th year of doing this work, where the term of it being work for me disappeared, and it was just who I was, is what I became. So then later on in my career, I decided, well, you know what, I'm gonna take a master's. And I was fortunate enough, I did come back to Children's Aid, and I worked, recently left Children's Aid, but I came back and I did another 5 to 6 years there doing the same work. And I met a director, Harry Gonzalez, who sat me down and said, you know too fucking much to not have a master's. So you need to go and get a master's. And he's like, and he asked me, why don't you have a master's? And at the time I was just like, oh, because I felt like I had enough years of experience. I was already into my 8th, 9th year of college access work. So I was like, I kind of know it already. I don't feel like I need a master's. He's like, but wouldn't you want to do more with what you know? And at least have people in the industry kind of respect you. Because, now it's like I was stepping into certain rooms where there were people with their masters already, some of them going for their PhD in this work. And, college access has become like such a buzzword right now in the educational system that it was like, who was I going to be in that room if I didn't have credentials to say that I'm helping kids get into college? So, there's a lot of political side to it. So I decided to go for my master's, and I didn't know what I wanted to do at first. And, higher education became like an interest for me because this part of doing college access with high school kids is the easy part. Anybody could go to college, and I'll dive in a little deeper in a bit about that. Anyone can go to college, and because anyone can go to college, the access part is easy. It's the part that is not easy is the ensuring that these kids are finishing college, which is another story.
Right.
The numbers change drastically when you're measuring students going in versus students completing and going out.
Right. So sort of on that point, then what are some of the roadblocks that kids in our community face when they're going into college?
So, there's this theory, and there are many books, textbooks, college textbooks that talk about the 6 to 10 year theory, right? Where kids of color specifically, and this is more of race and ethnicity, take from 6 to 10 years to actually complete a college education because of issues like finances. Currently now with the issue with undocumentation, right? It's still very hard for a student who's undocumented to go to college without having to pay out of pocket. Mm-hmm. There aren't any more resources. The DREAM Act is very much so at times in limbo, and they're always voting for it. And every year and when it was in play, which was great, it was very difficult to get the funding because you had to be like an exceptional undocumented student who's like smarter than every kid in America. And here you go, here's the money for you to continue your education. So even with the few programs that are there to support, they're very difficult to get into and to keep them because every year they had to reapply.
Right. And then you also have the kids like what we saw growing up, where it's like, yeah, well, I need to help out because my grandma got sick and she's the one who's raising me.
Right.
Or, such and such didn't have money. Yeah, like you said, like I wanted to go away for college and my scholarship only covered a year, and then we didn't have the money to keep me out there, so I had to come back. Like there's so many different little roadblocks that actually come up in that way that kids who are in a different socioeconomic status just never have to worry about.
Right. And it's life. Exactly what you said. It's those little glitches, those little roadblocks, students having family members pass away while they're in college and then deciding to just stay home because they need to take care of siblings. And just a lot of different reasons as to why
and even systematically
there's
a lot of,
and I was just going to get into that. There's also students who've been incarcerated or done juvie, and then they come out thinking, well, I can't do college because financial aid doesn't cover it. Ask that one little question, like, have you ever been a felon? And if you have, but what kids don't know is that
I didn't know that. So if you're a former felon, they won't fund you?
Yeah, there's a question that asks, have you ever committed a crime or been considered a felon? And if you check yes, they kind of tell you to give a reason, but it's basically a loophole for them to say, oh, maybe not. We'll give you some. So it
it's
depends.
Not like written. It's not a written rule that you won't get funding, but it can skew. Yeah. Interesting. I didn't know that.
It can skew your application. So what happens is usually I always like to ask kids, because I've ran into situations like that where I've had students who did something and they went to court and they kind of had a case and they broke parole. Like I had a student my first year in one of my positions where he had an issue like that and I didn't know about it. I got a call from him during the summer because he did some shit and he broke parole. I didn't even know he had a case. So I had to get in touch with his lawyer and find out what kind of case was it? Was it a case that would affect his financial aid? And, we found out that there is a system you can go in and check to see if what the crime or what situation they're claiming that you committed. Just because you have a case against you or you did something doesn't mean you cannot get financial aid. There are ways to find out if your name is under a system that blocks those things, similar to voting rights, right? So it's kind of like if you're on the list of not being able to vote, there's a possibility you're on that same list disqualifies you for financial aid.
Right.
So, I mean, aside from just financial barriers and citizenship, it's just how about just racial demographics on campuses? There's a lot of students who run away from their campus because they're still the only, Black or brown or Latino kid on campus, and they get scared. I mean, people tell me that I was lucky to go to Disney World, but just this weekend I was talking to my cousin. We spoke about how much culture shock we felt just being inside of Disney World. It was so overwhelming because we had never experienced that many white people at once being happy. And then not being able to buy souvenirs because that's not why we went there. We were lucky enough to even have gone,
to be in the park.
So just imagine being on a college campus where all your friends always have money because mom and dad keeps on filling up their account. And
Juan, you're shaking your head. Was that some of your experience on campus?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was one of two Latino students in my college. So,
yeah,
and that's including grad students.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And I mean, and I remember one of the episodes you spoke about how you wanted to transfer out because you were just fuck that. I get the kids texting me hey V, hey, I can't take this anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, no, I can't do this shit. Do something. And it's just being prepared. I mean, and it's social emotional shit too. You get comments from your classmates, and maybe not all your classmates
and your professors,
right?
Juan had a teacher once that offered you help with your English work or something because he thought you were Mexican or some shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
That's a damn shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's shit like that. Sometimes people think that it's just the financial part or that kids of color are not smart enough, but the problem is that they're really smart but never really been exposed to this environment, and then they have to deal with the environment be expected to do well in an environment that doesn't necessarily support their needs. And what I mean by support their needs is that inner city schools aren't being supported, so it starts from
that's
from
what I was
home
gonna
base.
Say. I was going to say, in reality, there's a way in which you have to navigate college the way you would navigate having a job. You know, you have your own schedule, you have to manage your time, you get a syllabus at the beginning of the year, you're not necessarily going to have your hand held, and there's just a level of responsibility that sort of becomes overwhelming. And if I'm a kid who's in college and I'm doing it because, you know, yes, I want my education, but I'm doing it because I so desperately want to get out of the poverty or bad situation that I'm in. And so I understand that if I don't go to college, quote unquote, then it's more impossible for me to get out of the situation. So
which is not true.
Which is not, no, well, it's not true, right? Because there's other alternatives that are not just college, but we're taught in schools, like, oh my God, my whole school career, except for LaGuardia. I think LaGuardia was the only place where college conversations weren't being drilled into me because the expectation was that everybody there was going to college. Yeah. So they didn't need to try to convince the student body about that. But all in middle school, like, yeah, they were shoving college access down my throat in 5th grade. Yeah. You know, where I'm like, college, I don't even know, you know, what my favorite color really is. Like, I'm still discovering who I am, you know. But because of the high number of students in our community who weren't making it to college. Like in the demographic where we lived a couple of years ago, maybe like 2-3 years ago, only 23% of adults had graduated high school in the community that I grew up in here in the Bronx. Only 23% of adults had high school educations. So of course, like going to you know, middle school like that, they tried early. They tried really early to sort of sink your teeth into the idea of college and wanting to get that excitement around it. But if I'm a student and I'm on campus, you know what I mean? And like, I have such a hard time even just surviving, let alone going to school. You know, the minute that school starts to feel like work or is an unfamiliar structure that I'm not necessarily succeeding in, and I don't have that, I'm more likely to drop out. Like, I don't have time for this shit. I'm going to go get a job that's going to make me money right the fuck now. I'll take this trade class, or I'll take this exam to work in the city or become this firefighter, or hell, that's why we lose a lot of people, young men, to the military too. You know what I mean? Like, so you just give up, and there's no real life training on how to handle these environments. And it's not just the culture shock, it is the literal shock of like having to manage your own time and your own workload in a way that just your school doesn't prepare you for that.
It doesn't. And the problem is that when you look at inner city schools compared to a lot of private schools, or just, you know, advanced academic schools like the specialized high school, there's more free thought, right? So they expect you to make decisions if you're in a specialized high school, which was why LaGuardia never had to convince you about college. It's like, why the fuck did you apply to LaGuardia High School? You know you want to do great things. Great things happen when you go into higher ed. But like me, I went to Vanda High School. Yes, we had programs that taught us vocational skills, but not every high school had that. So now, like Julissa just mentioned, you're going to have, the moment that you're a senior, you have to make these decisions on your own. And guess what? You spent years having your guidance counselor, your parent, placing you in the school that they saw fit, or the school that was close enough to the house, so they didn't have to fucking travel all the way down to Manhattan to go get you when your nose was bleeding. Like, now you're stuck in these different counties, and now the school systems have created that system, which is a part of the systematic oppression there's the word zoning, which didn't exist before, were in play, and now people were already making decisions for kids from inner city high school. So by the time they become a senior, I put an application in front of them. They're like, what do you want me to do with this? And I'm telling them, make a decision, you know? And they're looking at me like, no, you do it for me. You do it. So even now, like, especially in the Bronx, there's so many schools that are saturated with college access, CBOs, college access. You know, you see all of these programs, CBI, you know, great programs. Great. Let me tell you, they have success stories up the wazoo. Like, I know people there, they do amazing work. But what I'm saying is that they don't, like, we don't have the time as college access people to then teach them about that undoing of, no, it is your decision. This is why I'm working with you so you can make it, right? So you get a lot of fear up front because they've never had to literally write their address out. You see what I'm saying?
Oh God! And when
you
they
know,
have
I
to
know
do the
kids.
FAFSA application, that is the most intimidating shit. Like,
Ever.
because at that point, it's not just you scared anymore. People's parents are like, "Oh my God, why do they need this information?
Right.
What is this? Or I haven't been tracking this way." And I would say to the systemic thing, that's another sort of roadblock, right? Because you do have families that, you know, whether you agree with it or not, do set themselves up in a situation where they maybe lie a little bit to get certain benefits and stuff. And it's not a matter of like cheating the system or being lazy. It's like, I need to survive, and so I need to say that I don't live with my husband, or I need to say that blah blah blah. Or people who are like, you are my father's information, I don't know my fucking father's name. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so
they don't know their real name, they don't know
like,
their own address,
and there's so much shit that you have to sort of like confront just to say, hey, can I have some funding for this education? Like, it is, the whole college application process is so overwhelming. And like, when I went to college, like, I thought I didn't apply to any level like Princeton, Yale's, blah, 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 because in LaGuardia, I let myself slack off. So I went from being like valedictorian in middle school to being like 87 average in high school, which is not necessarily that
LaGuardia
bad.
is
right?
not that bad.
No.
That's like a 90 in a Bronx high school, like, give or take.
But still, like, I did that second because I was finding myself as an artist, right? So, but to have the freedom to do that, what a privilege, because that actually taught me who I was and helped me find my voice, my authentic voice, not the, oh, I'm from the Bronx and I know this is right and this is wrong and I want to be right, so I believe and I do all of these things, because if I don't, then I don't succeed in the hood and I'm going to be pregnant, not going to graduate college, da 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 da. I didn't want to be a stereotype, so I was like doing the song and dance of like everything that was not the hood, but then LaGuardia was the first time that I had a chance to explore that. But like the way here in the hood, we shove it down their throats. You have to pass this test. You have to pass.
Right.
Like, we actually don't leave a lot of room for kids in high schools. Like, I think a lot of my peers who went to high schools that weren't like LaGuardia, and they, you know, unless they were like, you know, like, I don't know, lucky enough to really have a moment to reckon with themselves where they didn't fall into that. I saw many people get lost in that sort of like, oh, I have to do this type of thing. And so they followed careers and did things that weren't really their passion because they just needed to fucking survive.
Right.
You know, like, I don't know. I think that the whole college access thing, though, is very important. I do wish that LaGuardia would have made a bigger deal about college.
Right, especially for those kids, the few
Like
of
me.
you of color,
Like, yeah.
right, who had a different situation.
Yeah, like, I didn't know. Like, kids were, when they started talking about college in LaGuardia, all the kids were like, yeah, I know I want to go to Carnegie Mellon, and they knew all these things about all these programs. And I'm like, yo, how do they know all of these fucking schools and what that means? And it's because, like, it's their parents' alma mater, or like their parents work in the industry with people, and their parents. So there was this one girl who, her dad was the president of John Jay College, who was one of my peers, right? Lives right on the Dumbo waterfront. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so think, like, that is the type of people we went to school with, compared to me, where, like, you know, my father got his college degree, like, finished his bachelor's when I was in high school because he wanted to finish school, and then, like, awesome, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the sort of example I had growing up that made me say, like, yes, I'm absolutely going to college because I want to, not just because I have to, but because, like, it's a thing that we do in this family, even if it means you're doing it
Right.
at the age of, I'm not going to reveal my dad's age, but, like, you know, like, mad old. Like, yeah.
Not mad old, you know, aging
Mad
gracefully.
old.
You know?
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, between 2000 and 2016, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, it shows that African American students, the increase of students attending college between that 16-year period only really went up 2%, from 11% to 13%. There's only 13.7% of students between 2000 and 2016 that has gone up. So that demographic has not really shifted. I mean, Hispanic and Latinos as well. We started at a 9.9% in 2000, and we've just moved up an 8 to 9%. We're only at 18.2%. So, you know, it just goes to show there's all these barriers kind of cause this needle from shifting very slowly. And I mean, we went to DC recently and went to the African American Museum. We learned about
Everybody
how
has to go to that shit.
everyone should definitely go. It was amazing.
I was walking around crying when I saw Harriet Tubman's like shawl and the slave house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I was like,
You were done.
Yeah. It is. It's a lot to take in. But it really reminds you of the importance and that how fucking amazing kids of color are. I think that, like Huang said, or even Julissa mentioned earlier, like kids get bored when you try to force feed them this whole theory about why politics and, why we should find education as a privilege. But it's not so much education. I tell students, like, knowledge is a privilege.
Knowledge
like,
is power.
Knowledge is what we can't take back from you. Once you know something, no one can steal that back from you. They can try to dehumanize
fake
you,
news you to death.
Yeah, they could give you so much bullshit, but what they can't do is take away the fact that you're a fucking artist, or that you're able to create things that kids in your same neighborhood can't. Like, when kids are talented, I always try to encourage them to really look at things past their grades, because that's the system.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at a Regent score, when you're looking at an SAT score, that's the system trying to remind you that your family and your ancestors learned how to read when some of them were either 13, some of them were well on to adults, they were slaves, whatever the case may be, and that our educational timeline is not that old, so we're literally playing catch up. So when I see a student who has a talent, I'm like, be blessed, like, be happy that you have this. Now let me show you how you can utilize this to do amazing things, and break your cycle, because a lot of it ends up being a emotional beat up that they get from just society, making them feel that they're not shit. So like, this is what I love to do. I'm sorry.
That's
I feel
awesome.
like I'm getting into.
Yeah. What would you say to kids who think college is not for them?
Usually what I do is close the door, and I tell them my story. The fact that I graduated high school with a 75 average. I told them I don't even remember my SAT score. Like, honestly, I don't.
It wasn't memorable.
I think the only thing I did right was spell my name right. And I always tell them that because I literally didn't study. I didn't know anything. I was horrible at math. And I went to college, and I tell them that. And I'm sitting here, right? And the reason why I tell my story and I'm honest about it, because, again, I'm in an industry where there's a lot of professionals who talk about Dartmouth. And, like, I'm meeting professionals that actually were the elite kids of color when they were coming up in high school, and they were the honor students, and they went to HBCUs, and they did all of the wonderful things and got scholarships. I didn't. I got Seek. Right. Okay? Like, I got the scholarship because of my income. And to me, that was a scholarship. And I tell kids who get Seek or HEOP or EOP or whatever, that is a scholarship, because that means you may or may not have to pay as much as everybody else.
Right.
So, like, I didn't feel special when I went to college, but what I did feel is a sense of control. And what I tell students is, like, that's the beauty of college, is that you design the next part of you. And as intimidating that sounds, it's the first time that you get to use your basic human instinct to do what is your calling, versus following whatever mom or dad say. I usually get into a lot of, verbal back and forths with parents who want their kids to study something, but they have like a 60 average in math. Like, you want your kid to be a nurse, but they can't even pass the math regents. Like, let's be realistic. So what I try to do is I show them numbers. A lot of colleges are right now SAT optional. So there's that, purchase, hooray to them, the first SUNY to be test optional now.
Yeah.
So they are giving kids a chance without really looking at their SAT scores. And there are many more. I mean, George Washington University is a test optional school. There are a couple of schools now that are like waiving that right.
I wish they were test optional when we were applying shit, because there were schools that missed out on my ass.
Right, exactly. They missed out. And it's those discrepancies of the SAT score and the GPA. And there were kids with high GPAs, and they had like an 800 on their SATs, and there's all that. I could go on. Like, this is really like a 2-part, because college is just so much information. Like, the systems that they have in place, like, they're paying for these exams to kind of intimidate the kids into thinking that if they don't have a certain score, that they're not going to be
weed
good
people
enough.
out a certain way. They know who has
only the strong survive.
This is so Darwinism approach to education, which is totally gross and unnecessary. But yeah, college, you know what? College is for anyone, but if you choose to not go to college, that doesn't make you less of a success story. There's plenty of successful people in the world who didn't go. But I will say that I think that when I had students, and I also did some college access stuff, I would always say to them, but there is always value in expanding your network and experiencing new things. So I think that even if it is just for the benefit, even if it's just basic, I tell people, even if it's just associates, even if you just want to do 2 years, or maybe just try a semester, you know what I mean? See if you like it or if you don't like it. I think there is value, of course, assuming that it's not going to cost them much, and, you know, maybe you're not going to shoot for NYU and you do, like, listen, I went to Brooklyn College, like, you know, get yourself a free semester at Brooklyn College, feel things out. Being on a college campus and all that stuff is a very different experience. And I wish every kid in the South Bronx could go away for college. I wish that was like a promise that we could make to every kid. I didn't leave, you know what I mean? And it sort of worked out for me. But then again, I was living in New York City where I had already discovered pockets and circles that were outside of my realm. So I felt a bit more exposed, and I didn't need to go upstate to meet white people and have that culture shock, which is a lot of what my friends went through, who went away. But like, I do think there is such value in having a semester in college and challenging yourself, because even if you figure out this is bullshit and this shit is not for me, the experience that you get from there and the things you learn, like I learned I was Black in college. I learned the term Afro-Latino in college, you know what I mean? And like, had I not, it probably wouldn't be until like recently when people are starting to talk about it that I would have learned that, and I would have had to be probably quote unquote convinced or made a believer of that. And the thought of that blows my mind, especially how prideful I am in being Black. The idea that I could have easily, if I didn't go to college, miss out on knowing who I was is a very big deal to me. So for those reasons, I always say, hey, like try it and maybe go for a semester and only take classes for shit that you like. Right. Like fuck the core classes if you can skip. And if you only want to take advantage of a full semester and do different certain like, elective classes, like do that. Right. But it's about the knowledge. It's not about getting the degree. It's not about the piece of paper at the end. It's about the shit that you get while you're on that journey.
And it doesn't matter. I mean, once you get a college degree, your employer is not going to ask you, so what was your average junior year at Brooklyn? No one gives a fuck. Like, they just want to make sure that you found yourself, basically. And that's really what college is about, is a journey for you to find yourself. And I encourage kids to go away. I also did a CUNY experience, and it's fucking hard. CUNY, to anybody, shout out to all my CUNY grads.
There's
and people who went
for both, I think,
to CUNY. And not to say that going away is a bad thing, but it's a different role, right? Like, I used to fucking hate having to go to class, and it was fucking snowing all the fucking time, or the trains were never on time, or I had to stand the whole way with the guy with the stinky armpit. And stuff like that you don't have to really experience when you're on a campus, because you can just wear your pajamas to class. Like, I wanted to wear my pajamas to class at some point. So, I try to work with students today, and I've gotten, my best accomplishments in doing college access, and I love all of my students that I've worked with, or that I've just advised for 2 seconds. The kids who didn't have the high averages, those are the kids that I would put them in schools full ride, and then they look at me like this was impossible. And I look at them all the time, and I'm like, no, I told you were going to go away for college. Like, I've gotten kids with 75 average, not the right SAT scores. They're in places like Oswego full ride, Plattsburgh full ride. And I'm naming the schools because people need to know that there are these schools out there that are looking for kids who are not the smartest kids. Like, or
smartest kid on paper.
Not on what I meant to say, not the smartest on paper. Yeah. Like you don't have to have the 80 average. You do not have to have an 80 average to go to college. Yeah. And I'm saying it because people need to hear it. You can have a 70, a school will take you. You will go to college even with a 70 average and not a high SAT score. You can go to college. So, those are the things that, students need to hear, and they don't think about it until, like you said, until that senior year when they're like, oh shit, I heard I had to do this college application. Now what? I can't go with my friend who did study, although I thought he was just playing Madden with me all day online. And now he's the one with the 95 average, and he actually got over 1,200 on his SAT score. So now I can't go with my best friend off to Syracuse. It's like, no, but you can still go to college. Let's talk about that. Absolutely.
Guys, stay in school. Yes. stay in school. Welcome to the new school year.
Yes.
Skittles students, be kind to Skittles. Be kind to Skittles this year. All right, Venesia, we're going to go into our Damé Luz section where you give me and Skittles insight on something. Skittles, what is V going to give us loose on this week?
Tell us what it's like to be married.
Me and Skittles have been to a couple weddings this year. And, and we are kind of like,
getting married at
are
this
we
age.
behind? Is it okay that we're not married when we have our wedding? Are we going to do a cake or are we going to do cupcakes? Are we going to do open bar or not? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're stuck in these limbos. But really, what is marriage? Because obviously we grew up with our parents that had, you know, a very different view of marriage and, just a different generation, but like as someone who is closer to our age and it has been married for quite some time and isn't one of our freshly married friends, what is marriage really like, especially in this day and age?
All right, so I've been married. I'm gonna be married 8 years, October 1st. So shout out to my husband, Chad. We met in college. I feel like at this point, marriage is like puberty.
Say more on that. What do you mean?
So, like,
I don't know if I want to get married if it's like puberty. I don't know.
And I'm talking about like, there you go, right? Marriage, see, the relationship is the cute shit, right? You keep your shit waxed and you make sure your hair's done and you make sure that you're saying all the nice things. You're not crossing boundaries because even though you've been together for a very long time, there's still certain boundaries you don't want to cross.
I guess that's why I'm not.
And then
married.
you know, when you get the ring and he, she, or, you know, whatever your preferred gender is, gets down on one knee and say, hey, let's get married. That's what the jitters come from. It's like, oh shit, I'm about to go through puberty again, aren't I? And then it's like, no, it's gonna be okay. And you go in very excited, and then all of a sudden you wake up every morning, you start noticing shit that didn't bother you before that all of a sudden start bothering you. And you're like, shit. Like, why does he keep on doing that?
What is this hair in this
Exactly.
place?
And that's why, like, and I've had this conversation with Chad, so I'm not speaking like, and he doesn't know.
It's all
that
right.
I'm
We
saying
get it. Full disclosure. She loves her husband. Whatever.
But you know, we talk about this shit because we're like, do you remember when we were dating? Shit was great. Like, what the fuck happened? And it's usually because it's like puberty. It's like, you know, you have to go through it because you're growing in a different stage with that person now. So, like, if you get married in your 20s, mid-20s, or even late 20s, you're about to enter your 30s. So now already your body is already changing. I mean, I'm talking from a woman's aspect, like your body is already changing. That bitch is ready to just be whatever it wants to be. And sometimes the man is like, what the fuck is happening? This feels like puberty. Why is she no longer
gross now?
Exactly. Why is she not waxing anymore? Like, I thought this was gonna keep on going. And it's like little shit like that. So for me, marriage is like puberty is not a bad thing, but it takes getting used to after you pass that little, you know, honeymoon
phase.
Right.
Yeah. So what now they're like, you know, relationship dynamics, like being in a poly relationship, open relationships, things like that. Do you think that people can have successful marriages and still have open like sex lines outside of the marriage?
Well, I do a lot of reading, and you know, again, as I've
I'm preparing to hear a no here.
Yeah,
me too.
It is a no, like
For
in my
you.
current situation. But what I'm saying is, like, I've read books. Like I said, you're going through changes. So as I've read on, I mean, I feel like this generation is gonna be that fluid generation. Like, hey, chill out. It was one time, and then okay.
Let me tell you
What
something.
you trying to say about us?
No. I'm not saying
just
your
that.
generation. I'm just saying the more current generation.
I have friends that are in poly relationships, and
Right.
stuff like that. Like, I get it.
Because, you know, the whole DM situation, like, come on, if you're getting hit up in the DMs, like, that didn't exist when I was dating.
Listen,
like, there was no DM. It was like you either got caught in the street or your friend Felicia called you like, bitch, I see your man on the street.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like there was no DM. There was no bitch on the side sliding into the DM saying, hey, boo, what's up? When we going to get this on? So it's difficult.
Our niggas was better protected. Now we out here got bitches coming from mad directions. Not,
exactly.
You know, like, no.
Now that friend who would have called you is the one DMing him, and that's the issue with the DM.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it be...
Yeah, it's true. No, it is true.
So
it is. It's
so
very
you know,
true.
like I just feel
Skittles is having a blast right now. But yeah, no, it's true. No, that's actually absolutely true. There are a lot more challenges in a marriage and social media. So actually, that's a great question. How does social media play a role in marriages? Not necessarily yours personally, but like I know you have married friends too, right?
Right. So I mean, it's about building boundaries too. Like, you know, shit is always gonna happen. Shit is gonna happen. I'm not, you know, and I'm not speaking from personal experience. It's just more so like you need to build boundaries. I tell females especially, because I'm going through certain changes myself as a woman every time. You gotta know yourself, because even marriage is really the process of you getting to know you on that level, right? You're getting to know the married version of yourself. And whoever that is, whether it's the person who can't stay out of the DMs because it just so happened to be so hooked on it that you rather hide it from your significant other, build boundaries, you know, if you can be transparent, be transparent. There's some motherfuckers who just not transparent. They rather keep it a secret because they feel like they live off of the theory what you don't know won't hurt you. Because they, you know, and then there's some people who are more traditional. They don't want to see their man having no female friends. They don't want to see their man's going to the strip club. They don't want to see them doing anything. Yeah. And there's others who just don't give a fuck because they're probably doing the same shit he's doing anyway. Yeah. So, you know, it's very hard to tell. And I say if you build the boundary, then you're letting that person know up front, like, yo, listen, I know this dude or this girl's hitting you up. I see what's happening. I'm not stupid. I got my own followers as well. Just be careful. And if you're doing something, then this is my deal breaker. Or if it's not your deal breaker, you should be more like, well, tell me when you fuck that bitch. Yeah. So I can know not to, you know what I'm saying? And there's some people who have it that fluid where it's like.
Some people like to spice things up. Some people like to include a third or fourth. Exactly. Some people be in NYCHA in the back with the in the supers. Back.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think it's up to the person, up to the two. Communication is key. Everyone says it like a broken record. In marriage, communication. But it really is, because.
In any relationship, really.
In any relationship. But just marriage specifically, because usually when people are getting married, they're not only investing emotionally, they're investing monetarily. Right. And sometimes that becomes a sticky situation, because as much as we act that it's all about the love, when a divorce comes along, a lot of people start counting their coins and start saying, well, this nigga ain't gonna get the rights to my podcast because I built that shit on myself.
Bitches better be ready to sign prenups with my ass.
You know, the whole prenup agreement and all of that came from that. Like, you know, also women feeling like, nigga, I built this shit, so
you ain't getting it.
You ain't getting it, you know? And vice versa for men. Like, you know, you didn't give me 3 kids, so I'm not going to give you the whole alimony. How about that? So, you know, there's all these different...
Petty.
Petty. Just petty shit. It is petty. But, you know, we as humans, we protect ourselves, right? So this is why I said it. Marriage is like puberty. Relationships is your journey of really you. You're treating yourself. If you're treating yourself how you want to be treated, even if your partner may do it, and I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, every relationship.
Cheating isn't your fault.
Exactly.
No matter how much people
try
to
if you treating yourself the way you want to be treated, one, it makes it easier for you to remove yourself from situations that you feel no longer serve you, because that does happen. Right. You know, and then 2, it also keeps you clear in the situation. Being unclear is the scary part. And every female at times, and I'm speaking from females' perspective because I'm in that type of relationship, that sometimes we get lost in the whole concept of what society identifies a good wife to be. You came home from work, but did you cook? You came home from work, but did you cook, clean the kids, sweep up and keep the house all tidied up? Right. You came home, but did you get your degree, and do you make as much as, you know? So it's the added pressures of what society expects, the gender norms that kind of fucks certain shit up. When you see some women now, and I at times try to shy an eye away when I see like these videos on Instagram of the wives like acting what they want to portray them as crazy, because they're probably in their head, they're like, I'm doing all this shit and this motherfucker is sitting over here talking about he's gonna go see, he has multiple females all around him, and I'm at work from 9 to 5 thinking he's doing what he's supposed to do or taking care of what he's supposed to take care of.
And he's in the back of the projects with the NYCHA
with
supers.
the NYCHAs. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's shit like that turns certain women into like what you see on Instagram. They look crazy, they look wild, and that's why, you know, we need to do better. Like, if the future is female, us females need to start really being real with each other. Like, yo, you shouldn't be in that situation, sis. Do better. That dude go. You know, let that dude go. Let me help you.
We do, like, and this is like, we can go down this rabbit hole, but we won't.
Of course.
But like, yeah, culturally, especially like growing up in the Latin culture, like you see a lot of like women taking a lot of beatings for their men or from their men, literally and both metaphorically. Like, there's just a way in which we're taught to take it with anything, whatever the situation is, and that if we can't stand by our man, like then,
we
then
ain't
we're
nobody.
Not good.
Yeah,
then we're not good
nobody.
wives.
And that's why you gotta. There was a quick meme that I sent out to a couple of people, like, don't fight over your man, drop him and just buy yourself a cheesecake. That's worth fighting for. Okay.
A good piece of cheesecake, man.
I would fight a bitch for cheesecake.
All right. Well, thank you, Venesia, for being on this episode with us. It was a pleasure. Where can we find you?
Well, you can hit me up in my Instagram. It's Venesia, VENESIACH. And that is my Instagram. You can hit me up. Don't DM me, please.
She's married, and
not
you don't
I'm
want Chad
married,
to come
but
for you.
Don't DM me. Just hit me up, and I'll connect with you. If you know anyone, real quick, shameless plug. I work for adult learning center, where if you know anyone who needs their GED, who wants to get Microsoft certification, we do it by income eligibility, and you can have them hit me up. I work at the SUNY North Bronx Center right off of White Plains Road between Allerton and Burke, and I'll be there. And if you need some college access help, whether you're going for your master's, PhD, whatever, I can do it. Come on, come see me.
There you go. See me. And you can find us, me at Julissa and Skittles, at
the real Skittles
with a
Z.
Skittle with a Z, and both of us at Ladies Who Bronche on Instagram, Facebook, at Ladies Bronche on Twitter. We're on Apple, iTunes. We are on Google Play. We are on SoundCloud, and we're working on that Spotify spot right now too. Follow us. Have a great week, and until next time, Bronche.